The Tower of Tomar, the secret refuge that saved the last Knights Templar in the forgotten shadows of medieval Europe, where silence carried more power than any decree. A single tower rose like a final heartbeat of a dying order, the Tower of Tomar. Its stone walls, carved with symbols the church tried to erase, held the last echo of the Knights Templar, men hunted not for what they had done, but for what they knew. As the world turned against them, and kingdoms trembled under papal command, Tomar became more than a fortress. It became a refuge for the few who refused to surrender their secrets. And now, as you step into this narrative, you will see why this solitary monument terrified those who sought to rewrite history. You are about to enter a story that begins where most end, with the survivors. The Templars who reached Tomar were not fugitives, they were guardians. They carried with them the final fragments of forbidden knowledge, relics hidden from the world, and a ritual the Vatican feared more than any weapon. As the walls of Tomar closed around them, the last brothers of the order forged an unbreakable vow that their legacy would endure even if their bodies fell. Everything inside this sanctuary, every chamber, corridor, and symbol, was part of a plan centuries ahead of its time. The deeper you walk into this tale, the clearer it becomes that Tomar was never merely an escape. It was a strategic center, a silent bastion designed with astronomical precision, secret communication routes, and codes embedded in its architecture. These were not coincidences. They were warnings. The Templars knew their enemies. They knew the storm that was coming, and they prepared Tomar not just for survival, but for transmission, the passing of a truth the world was not ready to face. Now, as the dust of centuries begins to lift, the Tower of Tomar stands as the last unbroken witness of an order that refused to be erased. Its stones whisper a defiance that outlived kings, inquisitions, and entire empires. And as you stand at the threshold of this revelation, one truth becomes unavoidable. The Templars were never defeated. They adapted. They hid in plain sight, and they preserved their legacy where the church would never dare to look. What we uncover here is not merely history. It is the resurrection of a secret that was meant to die with them. From the moment you step into the silent memory of Tomar, a strange tension begins to take hold, as if the tower itself were observing you, measuring each breath and every fragment of curiosity that brought you here. The deeper your imagination moves into this ancient sanctuary, the harder it becomes to believe that anything about it was accidental. Every stone, every arch, every hidden marking carved into the walls carries the deliberate intention of men who knew they were about to vanish from the world, but not from history. Tomar was the final refuge of an order determined not to be erased, a place where the last Templar brothers retreated not as fugitives, but as guardians preparing for a silent counterstrike against the greatest political purge medieval Europe had ever seen. As the open fields surrounding the tower stretched toward the horizon, untouched by the centuries, you begin to sense that Tomar was chosen for far more than its distance from danger. It was chosen because it was perfect, isolated enough to hide, fortified enough to endure, and enigmatic enough to whisper across time. Every legend tied to this fortress, the symbols encoded in its geometry, the alignment of its chambers with the movements of the sun, the rituals said to have taken place in rooms no inquisitor ever discovered, points toward a truth the world was never meant to witness. Tomar was built not to protect bodies, but to protect revelations. The more you explore its origins, the more evident it becomes that the tower served as the final stronghold of knowledge the church feared above all else. What the Templars carried into Tomar was not treasure, but insight that threatened doctrine, power, and the Vatican's claim to spiritual supremacy. Inside these walls, they preserved teachings that redefined authority, archives that challenged accepted narratives, and strategies that allowed fragments of their order to survive even after their supposed destruction. Tomar did not merely shelter the last knights, it sheltered the last truth. By the time you stand before its ancient stones, a realization settles over you with undeniable weight. This introduction is not simply an opening chapter, it is an awakening. Once you understand the purpose of Tomar, the story of the Templars' fall no longer appears as defeat, but as transformation. Nothing about their disappearance was accidental, and nothing about their survival was coincidence. The tower was a message left for those who would one day seek answers buried beneath centuries of silence. And now, as that silence begins to break, you understand why the church feared this place more than any battlefield. Within the first layer of this hidden narrative, the Tower of Tomar reveals itself not merely as a fortress, but as a meticulously engineered refuge designed to safeguard the last Templar brothers and the forbidden knowledge they carried. Every corridor, every chamber, every angle of its construction suggests the presence of a deeper plan, a blueprint shaped by minds that understood the inevitability of their persecution long before the church ever placed its seal of condemnation upon them. The Templars who reached Tomar were not men fleeing in desperation. They were men executing the final stage of a strategy conceived decades earlier, a contingency prepared for the day when their alliance with the Vatican would collapse under the weight of political fear. As they entered this sanctuary, they did so knowing that the true war was not being fought with swords, but with information that had the power to threaten the very foundations of medieval authority. The first purpose of Tomar was preservation, and the Templars approached it with the same discipline they applied to warfare. Hidden beneath the tower's floors and embedded within its walls were coded manuscripts, encrypted maps, relics of spiritual significance, and testimonies that contradicted the Church's official doctrine. These were not treasures meant to be admired, but weapons meant to be protected, weapons crafted from truth. The Templars understood that the Vatican's greatest fear was not their military might, but the revelation of what they had discovered beneath the Temple Mount. And so, within Tomar, they constructed a labyrinth of concealment, false walls, decoy chambers, and architectural traps designed to confuse any intruder. Only the initiated, those who had undergone the Order's secret rituals of perception and discipline, knew how to navigate its mysteries. For all others, Tomar was an impenetrable puzzle. Yet preservation alone was not enough. Tomar also served as a center of transmission, a place where the last brothers would gather to ensure that their knowledge would not die with them. Inside its circular sanctuary, they held clandestine councils, drafting letters in cipher and sending messengers through hidden routes across Portugal, France, Scotland, and the Mediterranean. Their goal was simple and radical: to distribute fragments of their truth to trusted allies so widely that no papal decree, no inquisition, no purge could ever destroy it completely. The tower became a lighthouse in the dark, a point from which the Templars illuminated paths for future generations to recover what was almost lost. But perhaps the most compelling element of Tomar was the transformation that occurred within its walls. As the Templars prepared for the collapse of their order, something shifted in their identity. They were not merely defending a past, they were forging a legacy. The rituals practiced in secrecy, the meditations carried out in silence, and the strategies drafted in candlelit chambers all pointed toward a new understanding: that the Templar ideal could survive without the Templar name. Tomar became the birthplace of an evolution, a spiritual and ideological metamorphosis that allowed fragments of the Order to survive through new identities, new alliances, and new symbols that hid their presence from those who hunted them. In this first topic, the truth becomes clear. Tomar was not only a refuge, it was the crucible in which the Templars forged the immortality of their own existence. In the second layer of this hidden structure, the Tower of Tomar reveals itself as more than a sanctuary of preservation. It emerges as a strategic command center where the last Templar brothers orchestrated the silent survival of their order. While Europe burned with accusations, trials, and inquisitorial fires, Tomar remained untouched, protected by geography, architecture, and alliances forged long before the Vatican began its purge. From this stronghold, the Templars coordinated movements, coded communications, and covert relocations that allowed fragments of the Order to escape destruction in France, England, and parts of the Holy Land. Tomar became the beating heart of a network the Church could neither see nor control, a place from which the Templars managed to stay one step ahead of papal agents who believed they had severed every root of the organization. Yet here, deep within this fortified tower, the Order still breathed, not in numbers, but in strategy. A crucial component of Tomar's influence came from the alliances it maintained. The Portuguese crown, unlike many European monarchies, did not bend to the Vatican's pressure to exterminate the Templars. Instead, King Denis recognized the value of their discipline, their knowledge, and their military innovations. With subtlety and precision, he worked with the surviving knights to create the Order of Christ, a new institution that protected Templar members under a different name. Officially, the Templars were no longer active. In reality, they had simply changed their banner. Within Tomar's walls, this transition was carefully planned, documented, and taught. The brothers were instructed on how to preserve their customs, how to disguise their symbols within new emblems, and how to continue their mission under the watchful eye of the Church without exposing their true identity. Tomar was not just a refuge, it was a metamorphosis chamber. As the years passed, Tomar's role expanded into a center of innovation. The Templars, now operating under the Order of Christ, began to focus on maritime exploration, navigation, and cartography fields the Vatican did not yet fear because it did not fully understand their potential. But the Templars understood. They recognized that the future of power would not be determined by landlocked fortresses or crusader armies, but by the mastery of the oceans. Within Tomar, they trained navigators, preserved ancient maritime knowledge, and decoded maps acquired through centuries of contact with Eastern cultures. It was here, under the guidance of former Templar masters, that techniques later used in the Age of Discoveries were refined. And while history credits monarchs and explorers, the strategic foundation was laid in Tomar by men the Church believed had been wiped from existence. Yet the most profound transformation of this period was ideological. Inside Tomar, the surviving brothers cultivated a new philosophy, one that blended their traditional warrior discipline with a deeper spiritual introspection, shaped by the rituals and teachings they had brought from the Holy Land. The tower became a monastery of silence, where the Templars contemplated the collapse of their old world and forged a new internal identity that could endure beyond persecution. They practiced hidden rites, refined their codes, and embraced the realization that their mission no longer required public recognition or institutional validation. Tomar taught them that survival was not about maintaining their name, but about preserving their essence. Through the secrecy, the alliances, and the strategies conceived within the tower, the Templars discovered the greatest truth of all, that an idea cannot be executed, imprisoned, or burned. It can only transform, and Tomar was the place where that transformation took its deepest root. In the third layer of this unfolding revelation, Tomar becomes the crucible, where the Templars reshape not only their structure, but their very philosophy of power. With the Church hunting their brothers across Europe and monarchs bending under papal pressure, the surviving Templars inside the tower came to a realization that would alter their destiny. Survival required invisibility, and influence required transformation. No longer could they operate as the visible, iconic order, feared by armies and respected by kings. Instead, they embraced a new strategy, one built on silence, subtlety, and dissemination. In Tomar's hidden chambers, the Knights began integrating their knowledge into networks of scholars, architects, navigators, and thinkers. They moved from the battlefield into the bloodstream of society itself, embedding their ideas into structures that would outlast kingdoms. The tower became a university of secrecy, where the brothers taught select initiates the principles of geometry, astronomy, navigation, engineering, and encrypted communication, disciplines that would soon shape Europe's intellectual rebirth. This shift was not accidental. The Templars understood that institutions could be destroyed, but knowledge could not. So they redirected their energy away from maintaining their former identity and toward planting seeds in places the Church would never suspect. They collaborated with builders designing Gothic cathedrals, with scholars decoding ancient texts, with merchants expanding trade networks, and with explorers mapping the unknown. Hidden inside artistic symbols, architectural layouts, and navigational charts were traces of Templar wisdom patterns, ciphers, and alignments that carried the essence of their teachings. Tomar became the command center of this silent diffusion. What the Vatican believed to be the end of the order was, in truth, only the end of its uniform. While the flames of persecution raged across Europe, the Templars slipped into the fabric of the world, ensuring their survival not through force, but through influence. Meanwhile, inside Tomar, spiritual evolution deepened. The surviving knights refined their inner code, preserving the rituals and meditative practices that had once strengthened their battlefield unity. This new phase of the order thrived on introspection, discipline, and a sense of mission unbound from titles or hierarchical recognition. Without the burden of public identity, the Templars became freer, more adaptably and spiritually resilient. They no longer sought to shape Christendom through warfare. They sought to shape the future through enlightenment. The Church, obsessed with destroying their bodies, failed to realize that the Templars were shedding their old skin and stepping into a new phase of existence, one that could infiltrate culture, science, exploration, and philosophy without ever revealing its source. Tomar was the birthplace of this metamorphosis, a sanctuary where the Order learned that the most powerful form of survival is evolution. As this transformation took hold, the Vatican unknowingly lost the war it believed it had won. By forcing the Templars into the shadows, it pushed them into a realm where they became untouchable. Their identity dissolved into symbols, codes, and teachings hidden in plain sight. Their influence spread quietly but decisively through future generations who never realized the origin of the ideas they carried forward. From Tomar emerged not an army, but a legacy, one that slipped beyond the reach of papal authority, and into the hands of thinkers, builders, navigators, and visionaries who would shape the modern world. In this third topic, the truth becomes unmistakable. The Templars did not vanish, they multiplied. Their defeat was an illusion, and Tomar was the heart of their silent rebirth. In the fourth layer of this hidden saga, the Tower of Tomar reveals its most enigmatic purpose. It served as the Templars' final diplomatic engine, a silent node of influence that stretched across kingdoms, orders, and institutions that never realized they were being shaped by men the Church believed extinct, while the Vatican intensified its persecution and Europe echoed with the cries of tortured knights. The survivors inside Tomar shifted from military strategy to political infiltration. They understood that open resistance meant annihilation, but diplomacy conducted in the shadows could redirect the course of nations. So from within the tower's circular sanctum, letters sealed with symbols known only to initiated allies traveled discreetly through Portugal, Castile, Aragon, Scotland, and beyond. These messages carried negotiations, warnings, instructions, and coded alliances. Kings who distrusted Rome listened. Nobles who owed their fortunes to Templar protection obeyed, and maritime powers looking toward the unknown seas found in Tomar the one voice that understood the future long before anyone else. The Church hunted their bodies, but their influence flowed invisibly through the veins of Europe. At the same time, Tomar became the Templars' most sophisticated intelligence hub. Decades before their fall, the order had cultivated networks of informants, merchants, sailors, craftsmen, scholars, individuals who moved through borders Rome could not police. Now, those networks turned their eyes toward the Vatican. Reports on inquisitors' movements, royal conversations, and papal strategies reached Tomar faster than the church could process its own operations. The tower's archives filled with scrolls describing rumors of alliances, betrayals, supply routes, and intentions whispered in royal courts. Knowledge became the Templars' weapon, and Tomar became the forge. The church fought with decrees. The Templars fought with intelligence. The papacy wielded fear. Tomar wielded foresight. And in a world ruled by uncertainty, those who predicted the storm controlled the storm. But diplomacy and intelligence alone did not safeguard the order. Tomar also functioned as a sanctuary of encoded memory, a vault of symbols and hidden architecture that preserved the Templars' greatest secrets and forms no inquisitor could decipher. Within its walls, geometric patterns concealed maps, astronomical alignments, encoded dates, and carved reliefs hid messages intended for future generations. The tower itself became a cipher, a structure designed not merely to protect the living, but to carry information across centuries of suppression. Those who understood the order's codes saw Tomar not as a fortress, but as an encrypted manuscript built from stone. Through architecture, the Templars ensured that their knowledge would outlive their enemies, waiting silently for those with the eyes to read it. The Vatican could burn scrolls, but it could not destroy stone. Meanwhile, Tomar's diplomatic reach extended beyond Europe. The Templars maintained discreet contact with Eastern allies, traders from the Levant, scholars from Damascus, navigators from Alexandria. Rome viewed the East as heresy. The Templars viewed it as wisdom. They exchanged ideas, preserved scientific knowledge, acquired navigational secrets, and protected the flow of information across cultures the Church sought to keep divided. This was the final heresy in Rome's eyes. The Templars embraced a vision of a world connected by knowledge rather than controlled by doctrine. Tomar stood at the heart of that vision, its hidden chambers nurturing conversations that would one day fuel the Renaissance and the Age of Discoveries. Here, the Templars became what the Vatican feared most: not warriors, not rebels, but architects of a future the Church could neither predict nor prevent. In the fifth and deepest layer of this revelation, Tomar reveals itself not simply as a fortress of survival or a hub of intelligence, but as the cradle of a myth powerful enough to outlive empires. As the Templars adapted their identity, transformed their strategies, and coded their legacy into stone, something unexpected began to take shape, a narrative that the Church could neither control nor erase. While papal decrees thundered across Europe claiming victory over the heretical order, whispers began circulating in villages, ports, and royal courts, whispers that the Templars had survived, that they had retreated to a sanctuary untouched by the Inquisition, and that their knowledge had not only endured but had evolved. Tomar became the heart of this mythology, a symbol of forbidden resilience. People spoke of knights wandering in disguise, of rituals still practiced at night, of secrets hidden beneath the tower that challenged everything the Vatican preached. Rome tried to silence these rumors, but each attempt only fed the fire. Myth, after all, is born not from truth alone, but from suppression. As stories spread, the Templars became something greater than men. They became archetypes. Their loyalty turned into legend, their silence into prophecy, their survival into destiny. Across Europe, symbols once belonging only to the order began appearing on coats of arms, carved into church pews, hidden in manuscripts, and etched into navigational charts. Some symbols served as quiet tributes. Others were coded signals passed between those who believed the order would one day return. The Vatican watched as its own narrative was undercut by stories it could not disprove. Every unexplained architectural pattern, every unaccounted fortune, every sudden rise of navigational expertise in Portugal was attributed to the ghosts of the Templars. And the more Rome tried to deny these connections, the more convinced people became that Tomar had not simply sheltered refugees, it had sheltered an idea the Church could not destroy. Simultaneously, the Templars' influence stretched into the future in ways the Church never anticipated. The Order of Christ, the successor organization formed from the remnants of the Templars, became the engine behind the Age of Discoveries. Navigators trained under its banner sailed into the unknown with knowledge inherited from Tomar's archives. Henry the Navigator, whose expeditions reshaped global power, operated from within Tomar itself. Maps based on Templar geometry guided ships farther than any medieval mind believed possible. And artifacts found beneath the Temple Mount, preserved, studied, and secretly applied, informed technologies and strategies that would ultimately redefine the world. The Vatican wanted the Templars forgotten. Instead, their fingerprints appeared on every major breakthrough of the next centuries. Yet the most enduring legacy of Tomar lies not in architecture, politics, or exploration, but in a single, unstoppable truth. The Templars became immortal because they understood that ideas cannot be executed. They hid their essence inside nations, symbols, sciences, and myths. They allowed themselves to disappear so their influence could survive. And Tomar was the place where this metamorphosis was perfected, the silent forge where an order of warriors became an order of whispers. Shaping the world from behind veils the Church would never lift. The Vatican believed it had one. But in reality, the moment the Templars stepped into Tomar, defeat transformed into evolution. And evolution, once set in motion, never dies. In the final echoes of this journey through the Tower of Tomar, one truth rises above all others like a flame that refuses to die. The Knights Templar were never defeated, they were transformed. What the Church believed to be the end of the Order was, in reality, the beginning of its most powerful phase. Within Tomar's circular walls, the last brothers rewrote their destiny, shedding the visible armor that made them targets, and embracing a new form of existence that no decree, no king, and no inquisitor could destroy. Through symbols carved in stone, knowledge encoded in architecture, alliances forged in whispers, and ideas scattered across continents, the Templars ensured that their essence would survive long after their enemies turned to dust. Tomar did not protect their bodies, it preserved their meaning. And meaning, once liberated from structure, becomes immortal. As centuries folded upon each other, the influence that began in Tomar seeped quietly into the foundations of the world. The Order of Christ carried their discipline into the oceans, igniting the age of discoveries. Architects infused their sacred geometry into the heart of Europe's most enigmatic structures. Navigators trained under Templar principles reached lands no medieval map could imagine. Philosophers echoed their teachings in movements that redefined human thought. Even today, symbols linked to the Order appear in places untouched by time, suggesting that the Templar spirit never dissolved. It adapted, evolved, and integrated itself into the very bloodstream of civilization. The Church silenced their name, but it could not silence the legacy that hid within every idea they transmitted from Tomar's shadowed halls. Standing in the presence of this immortal legacy, a realization begins to take shape. The Templars understood that true power never comes from visibility, it comes from endurance. They embraced disappearance not as defeat, but as strategy. They relinquished their public form so that their teachings could spread without resistance, without borders, and without fear. Their greatest victory was not a battle won on open ground, but a transformation achieved in absolute secrecy. Tomar was the chrysalis. The world became the wings. In this silence, they became eternal. In this secrecy, they became untouchable. In this evolution, they became legend. And so, as the stones of Tomar continue to stand unbroken by time, their message remains unchanged. A truth protected with conviction cannot be destroyed. A legacy carried in silence cannot be silenced. And an idea born in the shadows can outlive every empire, blinded by its own authority. The Templars live on, not in orders or uniforms, but in the echoes they left behind, in knowledge, in architecture, in exploration, and in every unanswered question that still haunts history. This is their immortal legacy, a force that survived annihilation, transcended suppression, and continues to shape minds willing to seek what was once forbidden. If this revelation about the Tower of Tomar and the hidden survival of the Knights Templar awakened your curiosity and opened your eyes to the truth buried beneath centuries of silence, don't let the journey end here. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement keeps these forgotten chapters of history alive, empowers new investigations, and helps us uncover the secrets the world was never meant to remember.